who is a prospect who you are higher on than consensus. And your guy here is TyTy Washington, the guard from Kentucky. Okay, so this is a draft class that is bereft of guards, of point guards especially, and we have seen over the years that Kentucky guards in general tend to underperform in college and outperform expectations. That's not a hard and fast rule because Marcus Teague exists, but this is something that has been a consistent theme over the last couple of years. So are you looking at the Kentucky system and TyTy and going, well, that really hampered what he's able to do, and with NBA spacing, NBA coaching, he is going to be someone that jumps up like so many of those other guys have?
Yeah, that's part of the appeal with him. I think, you look at the type of role that he was playing next to Xavier Wheeler, very much off the ball. Wheeler was doing most of the distributing and playmaking, had the ball in his hands more. I think that's part of it, but I also just kind of like the well-rounded nature of TyTy's game, just his ability to be solid at a number of things and great at, those mid-range pull-ups, attacking quick off the catch, as that defense is shifting, not wasting time. I think some of those things are really projectable towards the next level and part of his appeal. And then, as a shooter, I really think that he shot 35% this year on about 3 attempts. I think that he has a much higher ceiling than that. You look at the touch on the floaters and some of that mid-range stuff, and it's pretty suggestive towards his ability to be able to stretch his game out to the three-point line. So that's something I really bank on too. But like I said, like we were talking before, just kind of the whole consensus thing with some of these prospects. I'm not 100% sure at this point where like that really resides for TyTy. I think we would probably say what like 20s area for
Yeah.
for him at this point.
Yep.
So I think that anywhere from starting like 15, 16 range, I think that's somewhere that you could potentially start considering him. That's where I would say.
Well, look, I've talked a lot on this show about the lack of point guards in this class and top level guys. And then when you get to pick 10 and pick 11 is the Washington Wizards and the New York Knicks, who have definite holes there at that point guard spot. Is that too high for TyTy?
Just kind of depending on who's available and who's gone already. You've got guys like potentially Dyson Daniels, who's maybe there, or maybe he goes higher. I think some players, some talents like a Johnny Davis or a Jalen Duran, whoever falls kind of to that range, it kind of makes things pretty muddy, or whoever is in that range is going to make it a tough decision for them to make. But I would at least highly consider it for those kind of situations, just given the role that he was in, and potentially was a little bit more left for him to offer.
A couple of things with TyTy. We talk about, like, he only averaged 3.9 assists, which is not very much as a point guard, but as you said, he wasn't handling the ball a ton, and he does have a pretty strong assist to turnover ratio of almost 2.4. 3.9 assists versus 1.6 turnovers. So that's more suggestive of the fact that he wasn't that he wasn't generating assists, he just didn't have those opportunities to create those passes and to run that offense as much. So that does give us a little bit of hope. The other thing that's a little bit interesting with him is that he is a freshman, Keandre, but he's going to turn 21 at the start of the season, so significantly older than a bunch of these other freshmen and older than a bunch of sophomores as well. What was the reason for that? Why is he that year older than, 2 years older than a lot of these guys? When you talk about like Jalen Duren, who you just mentioned, like this is a two full years older than what Jalen Duren is. And is that any level of like pause as to him as a freshman being this older? Not that 21 is old necessarily, but as a freshman player, it is a little bit abnormal to see someone at that age.
Yeah, so I believe he's, a little bit older in terms of like the class and everything, just because of, how he started in school in the US, and kind of how the grades shook out for him. But, that is something that you have to kind of consider with his overall upside and just being a little bit older than the rest of those guys. But I always kind of take a little bit of this approach of being like, he's also never played at this college level the same way that these other guys have. So there's kind of that learning or growth curve that we don't always talk about. The bigger thing I think with him that I would be most concerned with, or like kind of retract, and I understand why some people would be just a little bit lower on him, is because of his, inability to like really generate great rim pressure or separation. Um, And obviously for a lead guard, that's one of the bigger things that you want out of them, even as good of a decision maker he is, or the low turnovers and things like that. But you also have to kind of point towards, what Kentucky's offense was doing. Oscar Tshiebwe is in the paint every possession. They had Keon Brooks, Jacob Toppin, and Ware out there kind of standing in the short corner. So you look on multiple possessions, there would be 3-4 guys in the paint, and that's a little bit more difficult to kind of get there. But yeah, there's just kind of a number of different factors. I just think that he's a really good player and somebody that I would like to have on a team, and then kind of, you know, be able to kind of experiment with how much he can play on and off the ball. And yeah.
I was a bit down on him initially, but my last two mock drafts, I have pushed him into the very back end of the lottery. So I am looking at that Kentucky situation, Kentucky history, the dearth of guards, and the importance of guards in the NBA. So I have pushed him up over my last couple of mock drafts for a number of these factors that we've talked about. Here, we're going to talk about a guy that you're lower on in just a sec. But before we